This week on Amphibia, things start to get real, though you might not necessarily know that from the first of these two episodes. It's really the second one that people came to this particular pair of episodes for, which is not to say that the first episode isn't good. It's just, man, I have a lot more to say about that second one than I do the first one. Like, it's kind of a bummer, honestly. The first of these two episodes, Spider-Sprig, is so much fun. And it needs to be, because for all that was cool about the second of these two episodes, what was it called? Just Olivia and Yunan, I think. It's such a downer in a lot of ways. Like, Spider-Sprig is fun and takes place immediately before Olivia and Yunan, because we need some fun immediately before Olivia and Yunan. And Spider-Sprig is exactly what it says on the tin. Sprig wanting to interact more directly with people. And also, you know, be appreciated by the people of Anne's world the way that Anne is appreciated by the people of Amphibia. After being inspired by, like Kamen Rider or something, it looked like, almost. Adopts a superhero persona, Frogman, which is very reminiscent of Spider-Man in a lot of ways. He even calls himself a neighborhood superhero and everything. And he goes out and he uses his frog powers to be a superhero. Which, considering all the anime references in this show, felt like maybe it was also a reference to My Hero Academia, which I'm also cool with. But like all of the best superheroes, Frogman creates his own supervillain in the form of, what was his name? Robert Otto, I think? I remember Otto because it's a clear reference to Otto Octavius, aka Dr. Octopus, one of Spider-Man's nemesis, who's like a neighborhood safety guy, and he's furious at Frogman for stealing his thunder, basically. Like, they never really get into what specifically his motivations are. He just seems to find Frogman annoying. And, like, by the end of the episode, he's been called out for being an attention seeker, just like Sprig has been called out for being an attention seeker. So maybe the implication was always that he went around and patrolled the neighborhood for the same reason that Sprig is out here, because he wants people to notice and appreciate him. And, like, inherently there's nothing wrong with that, and the episode doesn't exactly make that entirely clear, but it implies that heavily, because what ends up happening is Robert Otto becomes a supervillain. He finds one of the arms from the Cloakbot and just like slides it over his arm like a glove, and now he has a Dr. Octopus-esque super arm thing. Don't know how that works, but it was pretty freaking cool. And the two of them have a big flashy superhero-supervillain fight. And remember how I said that this show doesn't usually pay much heed to collateral damage, and that it was eventually going to, that I thought it was eventually going to, at a moment when it was most appropriate to do so? Well, here we are in an episode that's an homage to the superhero genre, a genre where collateral damage is often ignored by the story being told, and it's the collateral damage that they're causing that causes the two of them to realize the error of their ways. And so the two of them realize that there are better ways to help out, and that what they're doing is just harmful in general. They team up to fix all of the damage that they caused, and then Robert Otto gets arrested because he has a public identity that people know and recognize, but Frogman doesn't because he's in disguise, which kind of sucked for Robert, but whatever. It was very funny. It was poking fun at the superhero genre, while at the same time it was clear that the people making this episode appreciate the superhero genre. It was ribbing done in jest, which is the best kind, in my opinion. And it was just fun. Like, it's not one that I'm going to go revisit a lot, but like, if I want to turn something on to just have on and laugh at while I'm doing stuff, this is up there with some of the best episodes of its kind. I do wonder, though, I kind of half expected, because in the Kamen Rider episode they were watching at the beginning, that wasn't what it's called, it was like Tarantula Ad or something, but it had a very tokusatsu Kamen Rider-esque aesthetic, so I'm just going to keep calling it Kamen Rider. The hero, the titular hero, gets unmasked, and he's like a tarantula person underneath, which I just realized is also a reference to Spider-Man in a way. Which, okay, was the fact that it felt tokusatsu and was also a reference to Spider-Man, was that a reference to Japanese Spider-Man? It's a lot of layers to this one, man. Anyway, he gets unmasked and he's a creepy spider person, but everybody still loves him anyway. I kind of half expected that by the end of this episode, that would happen with Sprig, maybe on a smaller scale, because there's this human girl, I think she's actually like Robert Otto's like daughter or something, who kind of befriends Frogman. And I kind of expected that he'd unmask for her, or be unmasked in front of her and she'd accept him. But that didn't happen, so now I'm thinking that that's just foreshadowing for the fact that the planters, or one or more of the planters, are going to be unmasked in the coming conflict later this season, and the people of Earth are going to accept them at that point, right? It's just, there's been so many instances where the characters go out in disguise, and yet someone finds out who they actually are lately, that I kind of expected the pattern would hold up here. Still, this one's good. It's a good episode, but it's so overshadowed by Olivia and Yunan that it's not even funny. In Olivia and Yunan, the two titular characters accidentally overhear Andreas talking to the many-eyed thing, which I actually know what it's called now, which it's not what I expected it to be. Let's put it that way. It's in some ways even more interesting. We'll get to that in a minute, because man, we learn a lot in this episode. I'm so happy, but at the same time, Anyway, they overhear him seemingly talking to himself, and in the meantime, in the time since Anne and the planters have gone to Earth, he's been just wrecking the land, scouring it for resources and ruining everything, getting super out of control and industrial with it. And Lady Olivia in particular is upset about this because it's her family's responsibility to take care of the land and preserve it. So she decides she can't let him do this anymore. And Yunan's like, man, he's crazy. I don't want to follow him anymore. So they team up to go and free the one person that they know who is smarter than him, that being Marcy. And this is the stuff we saw in the trailer a while back. It's all pretty much what we expected it to be, frankly. We do learn, as this is going on, that Olivia does have a relationship with Marcy. They do have a almost familial, if not familial, then like a friend-ish relationship. Like, Olivia took care of Marcy. Yunan doesn't really know her, though, which I thought was interesting. I thought we were going to find out that both of them knew Marcy pretty well. It's interesting that it's only one of them that does. But it creates an interesting dynamic, because Olivia is sure that they need Marcy, but Yunan's not. She just doesn't know of anybody better, and seems to trust Olivia's intelligence more than her own, which is probably smart, because Yunan's strong, she's just not very intelligent. And they come so close. They come so close. They sneak down into the catacombs under the castle, where Marcy's being kept in a big pickle jar. It looks like a big pickle jar anyway. And they go past the moss man that we saw down there at one point, and the, what are they called, shadowfish, I think, the ghostly creatures. None of which harm them. In fact, the moss man seems to appreciate that they're there, which was very cool. And Olivia even drops that she believes this is the place where their ancestors used to keep their prisoners from other worlds, confirming that old theory that the shadowfish come from another dimension. But that also implies that maybe the moss man does too, except we've seen a moss man out in the wild. So I doubt that's accurate. I'm thinking just the shadowfish come from another dimension. At least the shadowfish out of what's left alive down there, anyway. Because it's something that Andrea says in a minute. Because they do get to Marcy, they do get her out, and they even fight off a creepy holodeck illusion that shows them all their greatest fears. With Marcy's help, she's the one that figures out that it's an illusion. And man, Marcy's fear is so interesting. Like, I understand why she was effectively crippled by it. I think if my two girlfriends turned into a giant two-headed monster and talked about how much they hate me now, I'd be paralyzed with fear too. Like, I'm not even joking anymore about the romance angle. When the two of them merge together and start berating her, the school crest on their t-shirt turns into a heart. Like, it's not even subtle anymore. But they do figure out how the thing works, and Marcy is able to strike the final blow against the holodeck system. And they're free, but Andreas knows what's up. He knows that they're down there. He comes in, he runs interference. And this is when we find out what the core is. He says specifically that he was able to heal Marcy because they've learned a lot about healing from studying the Moss Man. But then he says that they didn't truly unlock immortality until they studied the Shadowfish. And then he describes the core, the giant multi-eyed thing, which is a machine. I didn't think it was going to be a machine. I thought it was going to be a creature. But it's not. It's a robot containing the minds of some of Amphibia's greatest conquerors. Somehow studying the Shadowfish and the fact that they seem to just live on forever taught Andreas and those who worked with him to study these things, I guess, in the past, how to preserve people's minds digitally. And so that's what the core is a giant hive mind of evil conquering assholes who want a host. And that host is Marcy. Or, as the credits call her, Darcy, which I'm assuming means Dark Marcy. Also, though, if I'm not mistaken, I remember reading this when I was doing research for character names once. Doesn't Darcy mean like Dark One or something, too? I don't know, I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on it, I guess. And it seems like, one, this is super interesting, that doing this doesn't automatically mean that Olivia and Yunan are, like, branded traitors. It seems like maybe the core is going to give them another chance, now that they know what's actually up. But also, and I can't believe I'm going to say this because I hate Andreas so much, also, it seems like he genuinely cares about Marcy. He genuinely tried to find another option that the core would accept, because he didn't want Marcy to be put through this. Which tells me he has at least a spark of humanity in there. Newt-manity? Whatever, you know what I mean. I hope they're not going down a redemption road for him, though, because, man, he's just the worst. Like, he didn't have to do any of this shit. He knew better. He had other options. And he still put all these characters through this. Like, I know I've been a bit apologetic on behalf of characters like the Diamonds over in Steven Universe. But Andreas is supposed to be like one-to-one to a human mind. Like a human person. In terms of his way of thinking. Whereas the Diamonds weren't. I just feel like the stuff he's done is so much more egregious. He's been so much more directly involved in it. He's been so much more manipulative, so much more conniving, and just so gleeful in his evil. I don't see him as being redeemable. But at the very least, it does give him more depth, knowing that he would have done some other, less immediately harmful to Marcy kind of evil if he had been given the option. Like, I'm sure there's stuff in this episode that I'm missing, stuff I haven't even picked out yet. Frankly, I've watched through it twice. I'm going to watch through it a few more times. Believe me, I have a couple of, like, half theories baking in the back of my head right now as it is. There's probably something in here that'll contribute to at least one of those. I don't know. I'm not promising anything, but I'm expecting that'll probably happen, right? But, man, this was a good episode. Like, it pissed me off. Because, dang, I hate Andreas so much, man. Just, so much. But it was a good episode. Well-made episode. And I thought it was very fitting that rather than the upbeat, anime-esque outro that we've been getting for the last several episodes, the outro of this one was just black with glowing orange letters, reminiscent of the core's glowing orange eyes. Like, wow. What a great way to symbolize that fun and games are over, man. In fact, and I don't know if this was a direct reference, but again, there's so many anime references in this that who frickin' knows. It kind of reminded me of when the outros to Madoka Magica turned from upbeat to dark after we saw just how real shit could get in that show. Could be a reference. I don't know. I'm just pointing out anything I happen to see at this point, reference or not. Because who frickin' knows? Just to cover all my bases, right? I also was kind of half wondering when I saw how wrecked Amphibia is becoming at this point, how they're going to fix that. But I'm thinking, I just thought just now, the Mossmen are probably going to fix it, right? They're probably going to save this Mossman that's down in the catacombs. He's going to wander out and then like call out to all of his friends, and the other Mossmen who've been in hiding since this one was taken are going to come back out, and they're going to like heal the land, right? Because they have healing powers. That's probably what's going to happen, right? Sorry, just went off on a tangent there. I apologize. You guys seem to like the wackiness of my mind, though, so you'll probably enjoy that tangent. I don't know. You guys are weird. Just these are great episodes. The show just keeps getting better and better. Like, I was just talking to somebody on Discord. Apparently there is a pocket of the fandom that's very disappointed with how this season's been going. I don't know how that's possible. This season's been so stinking good so far. Like, yeah, it's like we kind of all expected it would have less filler than the past seasons did, rather, and would be just more focused on plot the whole way through. And so far, the ratio has been about the same. But man, the arrangement of quote-unquote filler to non-filler has been so much better this season, in spite of the similar ratio. And there has been story stuff even in the more fillery episodes. Like bookending even the more fillery episodes. It's been so well put together so far. Like, I just don't get that. Are people just salty that we aren't spending more time in Amphibia or something? Like, what's up with that? This has been a very good season of television so far. And I fully expect that it's going to continue to be a good season of television, because as I said a second ago, it just keeps getting better. I just hope that some people have been theorizing we're going to go back to Amphibia mostly full-time, if not fully full-time, before the season's over, maybe even for the second half or like the final third of the season. I hope that's kind of true, and that Marcy is freed from this thing before that, and that maybe like it takes Andreas as a host instead or something. Because I'm going to be really bummed out if this series ends with them saving Marcy from the core, rather than like us getting an arc of the show where the three girls get to just be together and do hero stuff together, right? Maybe that's wishful thinking. Still, I don't really have any complaints so far. This is an amazing show, and I'm just happy that it's continuing. I'm happy that I get to continue covering it. As per usual, though, if you guys have seen the Amphibia episodes, Spider-Sprig and Olivia and Yunan, what did you think of them? Let's get a discussion going in the comments section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description. I almost stumbled over that sentence like 3 different times. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.